Your Chicago Bears are in first place with a 7-3 mark halfway through the season as they defeated the Minnesota Vikings by 2. What does this mean for the rest of the year? We'll give you our prognostications coming up. In basketball, the Chicago Bulls losing streak continues as they lose to the Utah Jazz out on the West Coast in double overtime. But Kobe White made a big impact on his return to the lineup in his debut for the season. We'll get into that along with the MLB free agency. What will both the White Sox and Cubs do during the winter meetings that's less than 3 weeks away? And we have a special edition of Old School TV Monday. And we got to give some love to the Blackhawks, who, unlike the Bulls, they finished out their game beating the Toronto Maple Leafs at the UC last Saturday night. That and a whole lot more in this Bears 50 Monday edition of Second City Sports, which starts right now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one, a drive into left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! Robert Jr., his fourth of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edman back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide, up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Binnington, no chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard. Wow.
Getting what a pass. Buzelis with the fade on the drive.
Tuesday motions left. They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb throws. Middle of the field. Lovell catch. Breaks away at the 30. Lovell 20. Lovell 10. Lovell end zone. Touchdown Bears!
Welcome to this Bears Victory Monday edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in the living cover right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown over here. You know it's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, again, IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you definitely got to hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions, comments to the comment section. LaKeena will get them up on the screen for you. But you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid. I've given LaKeena for powers to give you dumbos to build and boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to our live game. That's LIVE, Live Entertainment Game. That's checking us out live in the living color right now on our Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels at 12:20 p.m. Central Standard Time. But we never forget, much love to the replay game that's checking us out on the replay, also at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Don't you ever forget our motto where we talk sports, music, or entertainment. We will always provide.
We invite you with some of the best here on Second City Sports, as of course the Blackhawks. Give a little shout out to them as they got a nice win over the weekend against the Toronto Maple Leafs. College football, we got a couple of surprises that happened over the weekend. Also a little college hoops as well, including a local team that's not having a very good start. A special edition of Old School TV Monday, MLB, as there's already been a signing already, and also with the winter meetings coming up in less than a month. What will the Cubs and the White Sox do they need to do? Will they do it? We'll talk about that and so much more. But first, let's talk a little NFL. Of course, the Bears. When I get the cardiac Bears, lucky Bears, however you want to say it.
Okay.
The Bears get another comeback even after scoring over only 3 points in the fourth quarter. That was all they needed as they came back to beat the Vikings 19-17. Caleb Williams threw for 993 yards and and rushed for 26 yards. DeAndre Swift had 21 carries, 90 yards. He actually ended up being the LFG, Tom Brady's LFG player of the week. Player of the game honors. On the flip side, J. McCarthy had 2 interceptions that kind of killed the Vikings early on. He also did throw for a TD. Jordan Mason had a nice showing. He had a TD catch and a rushing TD. So Sid, once again, the Bears is the fifth straight time they came. Well, this is actually the third straight time they came. It's their fifth straight time, their fifth straight win, and they're in first place in the NFC North. And Sid, what did you think about the game yesterday?
Those cardiac bears, they do it again, giving us fans heart attacks. Even though that's entertaining, I prefer the slow, easy cruise to a victory, which should have happened yesterday. Let me break this down. It was a chess match between defensive coordinators Dennis Allen of Chicago and Brian Flores of the Minnesota Vikings. We knew coming into the game that Brian Flores was going to blitz the you-know-what out of Caleb Williams. I will say this about Caleb Williams. Even though his stats did not look good on paper, I thought he matured in other ways, which I'll get into in just a moment. J.J. McCarthy on the flip side, he was nervous. He was scared. Even though the Bears did not put him on his backside, he overthrew some guys, including Jordan Addison early and Justin Jefferson, you can see he was clearly frustrated, and he had to be restrained and calmed down by his teammates and the rest of the Vikings coaching staff. With that being said, it was a chess match early. The Bears somehow broke through with their running game with Kyle Monagai's touchdown. But that fourth quarter, LaKeena, I don't know about you, but I kind of had to put some blame on that defense, but the other half on Ben Johnson, who's calling the plays, because that game should have been over. This should have been at least a 24-3, 24-6 win. But when you're not aggressive with your play calling, like Ben Johnson was not, especially during that second half, this types of things that happen. Now, they got away with it and won, but if we all like when Ben Johnson gets aggressive when it's less than 5 yards going for it on fourth down, depends on the quote unquote game flow. We love when he does that because that's who he is. But when you're not aggressive with your play calling, thinking that you can sit down and sit on lead and think that time is just supposed to just run out, you're going to lose more games than not. See Matt Nagy when he was here in Chicago for example of that, recent example of that. But all in all, the Bears find a way to win. They're 7-3. But as Ben Johnson said yesterday to his players in that locker room, there's a lot of things that has to be tightened up. This team is still growing, but you will hope they'll start to turn the quarter and become a team that plays more consistent from the first quarter through the last whistle.
All right. To your first point, Sid, this should have been, I don't want to say a blow, but this should have been a runaway win for the Bears. We all had the Bears, us and our group team, XRP. They should have been like 17-3 or whatever, because McCarthy was struggling. He was overthrowing guys. Addison, yes, he had some drops too, and Jefferson, he was a non-factor in that game yesterday. But also, on the same token, though, when that game flipped, that defense, where were they? Like you had Addison and Jones basically running all over you. Again, this is when having your pass rush, lack thereof, and also where was the secondary? Yes, I know they were shorthanded, but. Whatever. But again, Vikings scored 14 points. They got for Devin DuVernay because if he had not had that great punt return, that kick return rule is going to be a hindrance for somebody in the playoffs. I can already see that happening right now. If he had not had that big return, the Bears didn't have to have a short field, came in there. Santos, who actually missed a couple of field goals earlier, they won. Okay, fine, whatever. But my whole thing is that, and I told folks this on Twitter, because I got into it with some folks, and I'm a little perturbed.
You and Twitter beef? Go figure.
I try not to get into Twitter beefs, but some of these fans are like, well, just shut up and be happy. They're 7-3, blah blah blah. They can't help when they play on the schedule. Okay. Well, you know what? The Broncos, we'll get to them after the break. They're 8-2, but they've actually beaten people. Same thing with the Eagles. They've beaten people. They're 7-3. Look, you can't do this. You can't do this whole cardiac Bears thing. Yes, it's fun or whatever, but yeah, they would have won. They would have lost some of these games last year. Okay, whatever. But you can't get away with this against some of the better teams. You gotta look. Your schedule gets tougher. Your last 8 games. Well, okay, I'll leave the Cleveland. Well, I mean that Cleveland game's not gonna be a gimme either. But depending on where they are by then, we'll talk about them after the break too. But Jesus, but yeah, you're not going to be able to get away with this system when you're facing the better teams. You're not. So, and also too, like people say, well, they're 7-3. Well, you know what? Levy's last year, they were 8-3 too. Look what happened. So I don't want to hear, yes, you can't help who you play on your schedule, but yeah, I saw Kevin Byers tweet say who had a nice game yesterday as well. Well, you know what, these are the same old Bears. Well, you know what, you're kind of starting to get into that rhythm of being kind of the same old Bears too. Because you know what? This whole thing, you had no business. This is another game you had no business winning yesterday. Or at the very least, it should have been a blowout. So don't come to me on Twitter saying, well, shut up and be happy. No. I'm not going to be I'm not one of those fans going to say we'll be all blue skies and sunshine. No. Because you know what? This is going to come out to bite you later in the season. So, yeah, you 7-3, you're in first place, but this is where your schedule gets tougher. We'll see what this Bears team is going to be really made of.
We'll get more into this. I'll get more into the schedule after our timeout. You're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago Bears Victory Monday edition. Sid LaKeena here with you, reviewing the Bears 19-17 win over the Minnesota Vikings to improve their record to 8-3 and they stand alone in first place in the NFC North division. LaKeena, a couple points before we take our break and continue the conversation on the other side, along with reviewing the rest of yesterday's action. Caleb Williams, I know him and McCarthy didn't have great games yesterday, but I'm going to focus in on Caleb. Even though Caleb did not have a great game, like I said, you had to give him credit for leading Bears to game-winning drives the last 2 weeks. But even though he was sacked twice yesterday, I saw something that most people, I hope some people paid attention to, guarantee most people didn't. That remember early in the season, I was talking about how we like to see him running out of the pocket and create space and extend plays, which is all exciting, but it could come back and bite you in the backside. Outside of those 2 sacks yesterday he had to take, when he got outside the pocket, especially early in the game, he threw the ball away. That was something he was not doing consistently early in the year. I saw that he was doing that more yesterday when he got outside the pocket. Now, he did have a couple of nice runs here and there, but when the play was not there, when he got outside the pocket, he threw the ball away. I hope he continues to do that. And maybe I'll get your thoughts on the side on this, and I'll start the fire here. Even though Cairo Santos hit the game-winning field goal, he still should be cut today. Because the field goal that he missed, that you referred to early in that fourth quarter, that shouldn't have happened. Now, I know the standard is most kickers are now kicking 55, 65 yarders now, and he could barely make one. And how in the hell he lasted in this league this long without hitting from 50-plus yards consistently, I don't know. But despite what happened to him yesterday, give him credit. I know Ben Johnson gave him a game ball yesterday. Great for him, but I think the anniversary was last week. Remember Cody Parkey? We were still doing our radio show from downtown. Last week was the anniversary. Cody Parkey missed those 4 kicks against the Detroit Lions. But remember, that problem with him came back to bite the Bears in the booty in the playoff loss against Philadelphia. If Cairo Santos remains on this roster, which I think he will, don't tell me that the chances are not high of him missing an easy kick come playoff time, or heaven forbid, coming down to if the Bears have to get into the playoffs, that he misses a quote-unquote easy kick. That cannot happen.
We'll have all that and more. We'll finish off our Bears Vikings conversation and the rest of the NFL Week 11 slate, as there were a couple of upsets and even some surprises, and some teams kind of sort of like showing you that, hey, are the Chiefs, is it really over for the Chiefs? All that and more coming next. LaKeena McGee Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. More NFL talk for Week 11 coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. On Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel, you can find us at Sports Zone Chicago. And on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch. And we're gonna make sure you live this time. Ouch. You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops. Let's try an easy one.
Every day we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey Maggette, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to our Bears Victory Monday edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's LaKeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can find my LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. And as we continue our Bears post-game discussion, as well as reviewing the rest of the Week 11 action from the NFL from yesterday, for this half hour, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
To answer your question before we went to break, Sid, yes, I do think that something's going to happen that this is going to come back to bite the Bears. Whether it's Cairo Santos missing a chip shot field goal, or like whether it's indoors or like maybe in the elements or something like that, winds or something, that's going to come back to bite them. And also too, these game-winning drives that Caleb's doing. Caleb's going to throw an interception. It's going to be a fumble. Something where it's going to happen. Something's going to happen. In some of these games that's going to come back to bite the Bears. Going to get knocked into reality. I'm seeing like some people who cover the Bears say, "Well, you guys, you should be embracing. You should be." No, this team still has flaws. I'm sorry, but yeah, they are not the best 7-3 team. Let's be real. So that's just my opinion. Now, I don't know how you want to. How you feel about this right now, as we're talking about this at November 17th, but what do you say real quick?
I'm going to pull a Pat Riley on you. I'm going to give you blue sky, and I'm going to give you some blue bleep. Now, blue sky, and I saw this yesterday on social media, regarding the Bears' offense, even though they did not put J.J. McCarthy on his backside not one time. Here's the turnover surprise for the Bears this season. In their 7 wins, 21 takeaways, 2 giveaways. The turnover margin in those 7 wins is a plus 19 points out those turnovers, 52. In their 3 losses this year, only 1 turnover, 4 giveaways, minus 3 on the turnover margin, and points off a turnover, 7. Now, as I said before the break, this defense still needs a lot of work, and I didn't see a lot of pressure on J.J. McCarthy yesterday, minus the surprise blitzes, okay? That has to get better. And give you some blue bleep, the Ben Johnson play calling, especially in that second half, LaKeena. I know they did run the ball well, especially when that drive when they scored that touchdown with Kyle Monangai, but I didn't see any aggressiveness in that second half in terms of play calling. I blame Ben Johnson for that. I know there was some drop passes. Luther Burden dropped one earlier, but he did catch one later on in the game. I know Rome dropped one, if you want to call it a drop. I know Caleb overthrew him early in the game. And I don't know, I'm a lot of Sakia, so we didn't see much action yesterday. He's been having the dropsies lately too these last couple of weeks. But I thought Ben Johnson's play calling that second half is sketchy. I know he's a first-time head coach. I don't know many people don't want to hear that, but he has to improve on that as well. As I said in the beginning, do not sit on leads. You got to be aggressive. You got to put a stake in your opponent's heart and say, hey, you don't belong in this game. We're the better team. We're going to go out and do it. You can hate on Bill Belichick or Bill Belichick, as we call him on this show, or the great Jimmy Johnson. Both those coaches ran up the score, but what they were telling you is you're not better than us, and we're not going to stop being aggressive until that final whistle. And you see where both of them are right now. And number two, as far as the schedule is concerned, can this Bears team be a playoff team? Yes, they can. I'm not guaranteeing you they will, but they can be because of their schedule. You got Pittsburgh coming up next week, which is still not going to be easy, especially if Aaron Rodgers is playing, even though I prefer Aaron Rodgers to play. We'll get into that in just a second. And then you go to Philadelphia on Black Friday, and I believe they open up December at Green Bay. You come home to play Cleveland. I believe you play Green Bay again 5 days before Christmas on a Saturday night. And then you go to San Francisco a week later, and then you host Detroit to end the season. The question is now at 73, can you get at least 4 more wins? Because 10-7 is kind of sketchy. You'll probably end up as the 6th or 7th seed. But if you win this division, you got to win 11 or perhaps 12 games. And the way that things are changing in this NFC North, it can be possible, but it's still a difficult road to head. Especially with this team is continuing to grow. Obviously, this is not a finished product.
All right, we'll talk more about this as we preview Steelers Bears coming up. Hope we'll have somebody from Pittsburgh to get perspective on that. Now going to the rest of the NFL, let's start in Madrid. We got the Dolphins near overtime, but they came back and beat the Commanders 16-13. Tua Tagovailoa had 171 passing yards. Devin Achane had 120 rushing yards. Jalen Waddle had 52 receiving yards. Marcus Mariota threw a TD and included a bad time interception that they'll set the Dolphins up for that game-winning field goal in overtime. Devo had a touchdown catch. This actually ended up being a thoroughly entertaining game, which I didn't think that was possible between these two underachieving teams. But the Dolphins, they'll look now, but they're now 4-7. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but I guess it could probably end up saving Mike McDaniel's job.
Yeah, you just stole the words right out of my mouth. The Dolphins, ever since they fired their GM a couple weeks ago, they won their last 2 games. They were more than competitive against Buffalo last week. They upset them at home. And, of course, overseas, they took care of the Commanders in overtime. I did not watch not 1 minute of this game, so I caught a couple of highlights. I'll do one of the halftime shows of the game. So the Dolphins, like you said, their bad start is going to keep them out of playoff contention, but if they play hard between now and the end of the season, Mike McDaniel will be back for at least 1 more year.
We'll see if the Dolphins can keep it up now. Speaking of the Steelers, they had no trouble with the Bengals, 34-12. Aaron Rodgers threw a TD, but unfortunately, I guess something happened to his hand or his wrist and his left arm. He had to come out. Mason Rudolph came in, threw 126 yards in a TD. Jalen Warren rushed for 62 yards. No, he got a little bit banged up too, but that was a coaching decision on Mike Tomlin's part. Kenneth Gainwell, who the Bears will be facing on Sunday, he had 2 TD catches, also rushed for 24 rushing yards as well. Kyle Duggar had an interception caught. That was a bad pick 6 by Joe Flacco. 199 yards in the TD. Chase Brown, no relation to Sid, he rushed for 99 yards. T. Higgins, 63 receiving yards, a losing effort, but something happened between him and Jalen Ramsey during the game early on in the game. Ramsey got ejected for punching T. Higgins. Well, Ramsey said he spat at him. Higgins said no, that was Jamar Chase. I'm sorry. Jamar Chase said he didn't. Unfortunately, Chase for him, thank God for video, because video has came out saying that yes, he did spit on Ramsey, and that's what subsequently got Ramsey to throw a punch. So, your thoughts, Sid?
Uh, Besides some calling somebody a racist name, anybody who spits at anybody's face, in my opinion, is the ultimate disrespect, and it should not be tolerated in any form in our society. With that being said, we know Jalen Ramsey has been a hell raiser throughout his whole career, wherever he's played, whether it's in Jacksonville, the Rams, and now with the Steelers. That's just inexcusable, and I'm sure that Principal Commissioner Roger Goodell will take some money out of his pocket if the team doesn't do it. So we'll see what happens with that. But as far as the actual game is concerned, we knew that the Bengals didn't have a defense, and it was going to be up to Flacco to carry them. Um, it didn't happen yesterday. The Steelers did just enough to win, and Aaron Rodgers hurt his left hand. So we'll see if he plays next week in Chicago against the Bears. So the Steelers, even though their defense is kind of shaky too, they did enough against a lesser opponent to get the win. But they're going to face a different kind of opponent than Chicago on the road next week, and as you said, we'll see what happens then.
All right, going down to Jacksonville. As like I said, there was a couple of surprises. This was one of them. The Jaguars. Well, shout out to our buddy Spiro Diaz who had to call this game for CBS. Unfortunately, this one, like the last one, their last few weeks of the games they've had. Unfortunately, this one was not a close one. 35-6, the Jags over the Chargers. Trevor Lawrence threw for 153 yards in a TD. Travis Etienne had 2 rushing TDs. Bashuda Tutin had 74 rushing yards. Jacoby Myers had a 64 receiving yards as well for the Jags. Antonio Johnson had an interception for the Jags. As far as the Chargers, what the hell happened? Struggles all over the place. Only 81 passing yards for Justin Herbert. They had to bring in Trey Lance just to save his save his energy and such. So not a good showing. Yeah, not a good showing by the Chargers, and a bad loss. A loss that could come back to bite them when it comes down to seeding and maybe even the NFC West, AFC West, I should say.
Yeah, the offense of the Chargers did not show up. The running game didn't show up. There was no protection for Justin Herbert. Give the Jaguars defense credit for putting the pressure on him, especially in that first half, to set the tone. And the Jaguars running game, as you mentioned, LaKeena, showed up yesterday. It's something they've been struggling with all season long, but it finally came together for them yesterday, and which leads them to now 6-4 record. I know they're one game behind the Chargers in a wild card for a wild card spot. But if, like you said, the Chargers are not too careful here, and the Jaguars somehow keep finding ways to win, the Jaguars are going to be in the playoffs, and the Chargers will be sitting at home. But we still have a long way to go. But just a bad loss by the Chargers yesterday. Your head coach Jim Harbaugh, you got to get your players focused to turn this around mentally.
Yeah, we'll see how the Chargers respond this coming Sunday. The Bills, it'd be the game of the day. I was actually watching more of this game than I was watching the Vikings Bears Vikings game. The Bills 44-32 over the Bucks, which would be a very highly scoring, entertaining game. I don't think anybody had that on their arsenal here. Josh Allen, a big day, 3 TDs. Also, 3 passing TDs, as well as 3 rushing TDs. James Cook had one of those TD catches, as well as Ty Johnson. On the flip side, for the Bucks, Baker Mayfield threw for 173 yards, a TD, a costly interception that kind of killed the Bucks' chances of trying to catch up. Sean Tucker, a nice showing for him, 106 yards, rushing yards, and 2 TDs. He also had a TD catch, so if you had him on your fantasy team, you had a nice showing yesterday for him. So yeah. The Bills, again, wasn't pretty, but the Bills, thanks to Josh Allen, who did just enough. All 3 of those passing TDs were for 25 plus yards. Also, he had 3 rushing TDs as well. He's the only person to do both in one game. So I guess Alice is showing you why he's the reigning MVP.
Yeah, it was the Josh Allen show, because on the flip side, the Bills' defense is a problem, and it's a problem in a bad way. There's something they had to get fixed between now and the end of the season. But you mentioned it was an offense. We knew that points was going to get put up on the board here, but not this much by Buffalo, although they had the capability to do that. On the flip side, for Tampa Bay, their running game has been a bad problem over the last few weeks. Sean Tucker, as you mentioned, stepped up yesterday with 2 rushing TDs, rushing for over 106 yards, a season high for him. But if you're the Buccaneers, all the injuries are starting to catch up to you. And hopefully, that can even itself out between now and the end of the season. For Buffalo, they need this win to get back on track. They're 5-1 at home, 7-3 overall. And we'll talk about what Kansas City did or didn't do later. But you can get that number one overall seed in the NFC. They still got to play New England at the end of the year. But Buffalo, hopefully, you're trending up in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that defense is going to be a big problem for Buffalo, and their schedule. If you look at it, it doesn't get any easier. I mean, they do get 10 days off, so they're on a bye, but they do play the Steelers. They play the Texans first, then they play the Steelers, and then they play the Patriots. Like you said, they play them on the 14th of December. And they finished the season against, almost finished the season against the Eagles on the 28th of December. So it doesn't get any easier for Buffalo. Now, they do have a shot to get some wins. So could they perhaps maybe still have an outside shot to get that number one seed in the AFC? We'll have to wait and see. But they got to get that defense together, because that defense is going to be an issue for them down the line.
Yeah, so Sean McDermott, the head coach, has some work to do. He knows that. We'll see how soon they can get it done.
All right, let's go down to Nashville, and Houston again, not pretty. 16-13 over Tennessee. They needed a game-winning field goal there. Davis Mills, 274 yards in the TD. Nico Collins, 92. He had that TD catch for and also 92 receiving yards. Cam Ward, solid, 194 yards in the TD. He also led the team in rushing the Titans. But yeah, it was again back and forth. Again, it wasn't the prettiest game, but the Texans, they're back at 500, doing just enough to win the game, and they're right there in the playoff hunt in the AFC.
Yeah, and they're doing that without their star quarterback C.J. Stroud, excuse me, who has a concussion. He's been out the last two games after being shut out in the first half. The Texans outscored the Titans 16-10 in that second half, as you mentioned, to come back to get that last-minute win via the field goal. The Texas defense, we know, has been their strong point all year long. Their offense has been hit and miss. Like I said, C.J. Stroud's absence is not playing another big part in that. But with the defense that the Texans have, they can beat anybody. But hopefully they can get C.J. Stroud back just in time for the stretch run in the playoffs. Davis Mills, he's a nice short-term answer. Long-term, I don't think so. So hopefully, the sooner they get back C.J. Stroud, and they can hopefully gain some momentum going to the playoffs, I think the Texans can be dangerous. But they got to get C.J. Stroud back first.
Yeah, because their next two games they host the Bills, but they got to go at Indy and Kansas City. So it doesn't get any easier for the Texans. So, they're definitely going to need C.J. Stroud back. No shade to Davis Mills. He's been, very, very serviceable. He got sacked 4 times, unfortunately, but he was serviceable. Yeah, they're going to need Stroud back. They want to try to make that stretch run to the playoffs.
Yep. Let's go down to the dirty South in Atlanta, where the Falcons season, in my opinion, is over. After the Panthers come from behind to defeat Atlanta 30-27 in overtime. Bryce Young for Carolina, 31-45, 448 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Bijan Robinson on the flip side for the Dirty Birds, 23 carries, 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Tiara McMillan, the rookie wide receiver for Carolina, 8 catches, 130 yards, and 2 scores. LaKeena, for the Falcons, they were leading at halftime, 21-10, but then they only scored 6 points the rest of the way. That's not going to get it done. And Michael Penix Jr. Got injured again yesterday. Perhaps he may be gone for the season. Kirk Cousins being paid $10 million to trying to save your season is disastrous. But on the flip side, the Carolina Panthers get back to over 500 at 6-5, and they still hanging on in the hunt in that wild card race in the NFC.
And even we probably even say to some extent the NFC South, especially after Tampa losing to Buffalo yesterday. So yeah, Bryce Young was really good, 440 yards, which is a career high. He got sacked 5 times, so yeah, they got to work on that O-line for the Panthers. But yeah, nice showing by Dowdle all around. McMillan had a nice showing there, 130 yards and 2 TDs. On the flip side for Atlanta, well, Drake London's hurt. He's on IR. Michael Penix Jr. looks like he tore his ACL, and I think that same knee. Well, I think it's in his right knee now. I think in college he did it in his left knee twice, and yeah, it's basically it for Atlanta. might be it for them. So, but nice showing for Carolina. But yeah, it looks like it might be all short for Atlanta, this loss especially.
All right. And the last of the noon games, the Green Bay Packers walk out of New Jersey with a 27-20 victory over the New York Football Giants. Jameis Winston making his first start of the year for the blue team. 19 to 29, 201 yards and 1 interception. He did score a rushing touchdown, talking about Winston later in the game. Tyrone Tracy for the Giants, 19 carries, 88 yards. And Mr. Hawkins, Isaiah Hawkins for the Giants, 5 catches for 57 yards. LaKeena, Christian Watson, raised he's been all year. Well, he found himself in the end zone for the game winner yesterday as Jordan Love found him in the right corner of the end zone to give the Packers a 7-point lead, which led them to their victory. But early on, LaKeena, the Giants, as I suspected, they had the momentum, of course, with a new head coach and some new players via injuries and whatnot. The Giants came out motivated. They were ready to play. Green Bay was trugging along once again. But in that second half, the Packers offense woke up, put up 16 points, and they found a way to win the ball game.
Yeah, shout out to Drew Brees, of course, in his first game with Fox. He sounded pretty good. I only saw a little bit of this game, but he did sound pretty good. I don't know if you got a chance to hear it, but he did sound pretty good yesterday, a lot better than he did this first game. He was at NBC a couple years ago, so he actually definitely has improved. Now, as far as this game's concerned, like I said, Jordan Love led them down the field. He actually had to leave for a little bit. Malik Willis came in, led them down the field, scored a TD that kind of started that comeback, if you will, for the Packers. And of course, Love, showed them down the field. Watson, which ended up being the second TD of the game, which was the go-ahead TD there. So again, the Packers, they're 6-3 again. Look, it's not the prettiest. They've had a lot of injuries. Tucker Kraft's out for the year. They're still going to be chugging along and such, so it doesn't get any easier for them. Now the Giants, more energy, but yeah, still the same old Giants. But yeah, the Packers, if you're good with just getting the win and getting out of there with the win.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. See LaKeena here with you as we recap yesterday's action from Week 11 in the National Football League. Now on to the late games, and this one I have live on via my computer screen as the Los Angeles Rams had to hang on to a 21-19 victory over their division rival Seattle Seahawks. Sam Darnold for the Hawks, 4 interceptions off of 279 yards passing. Kyron Williams for the Rams, 12 carries, 91 yards in the score. And Jackson Smith and Jimba, 9 catches for 105 yards for the Hawks. LaKeena, the Rams jumped out to an early 14-3 lead. But despite the turnovers, the Seahawks found their way back into the game. Kenneth Walker III scored the touchdown in the fourth quarter. Before their kicker missed a potential game winner that was 61 yards, had the distance, but it drifted wide right, and the Rams were able to hang on to win by 2. LaKeena, what's to say about the Los Angeles Rams? As I said the last 3 weeks on the show, the Rams are the best team in the NFC, and even though they had to hang on yesterday, sometimes you got to win games like this, and the Rams did, and what happened yesterday doesn't change my mind.
Yeah, they had to claw their way back despite, intercepting Sam Darnold 4 times. You thought usually sometimes, but they weren't able to get points out of that. So unfortunately, that's why they were able to. They had to, Seahawks were able to scratch and claw their way back. Jason Myers. It was a little bit windy out. It's been kind of like rainy and windy for most of the weekend out there in Los Angeles. And also, I think the distance, was there, but I think they had the roof open at SoFi. But again, look, the Rams, you gotta be able to scratch and claw your way with these games, and they were able to do that yesterday. And now they've got the sole possession of first place in the NFC West.
Speaking of the NFC West, the 49ers, they get it done going back out on the road, defeating the Arizona Cardinals 41-22. Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers, 13 carries, 81 yards, and 2 touchdowns. On the flip side for Arizona, their star wide receiver Michael Wilson, 15 catches for 185 yards. Jacoby Brissett set an NFL record yesterday, which most people didn't realize, including yours surely, until after the games were concluded. 47 completions off of 57 attempts, 452 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. That's an NFL record. I'm talking about 47 completions by Brissett, and your offense only was able to put up 22 points. Go figure.
Yeah, remember they didn't have Marvin Harrison Jr., of course, who's recovering from appendicitis, so that's why they weren't able to. But a nice breakout game from Michael Wilson, 185 yards. Also, Trey McBride had 115 yards as well for the Cardinals. That kind of helped that, but it was really all Christian McCaffrey. 2 TDs. George Kittle had 2 of those TD catches. Nice game to come back for Brock Purdy. 3 TDs, didn't really skip too much of a beat. He looked really good yesterday. And the defense for San Francisco, look, they don't have the big names like Fred Warner and Bosa, but these guys are actually trugging along and such. So again, they're 7-4. They're right there in the thick of it in the NFC wildcard picture, the 49ers, despite all their injuries. So yeah, they looked good. Like I said, we'll see. They get a little bit of a break in their schedule these next few weeks before they play the Colts on the 22nd of next month. So this is your chance to kind of. Although that Panthers game is not going to be easy at all, but again, they should be able to win their next 3. Like I said, they play the Panthers, the Browns, and the Titans, and they should get to 10 wins and see if they can just build on from there so they can clinch a playoff spot.
Speaking of building, let's go to Cleveland, Ohio, where the Browns lose a close one at home to the Baltimore Ravens, their division rivals, 23-16. Lamar Jackson, 14-25, 193 yards and 2 interceptions. King Derrick Henry for the Ravens, 18 carries, 103 yards and a touchdown. Zay Flowers for Baltimore, 3 receptions for 78 yards. On the flip side for the Browns, Dylan Gabriel, their starting quarterback, was concussed. And Shedeur Sanders, who was brought in, of course, he looked like a rookie, as all rookies do. But he almost led Cleveland to a game-tying a touchdown drive, but it was all for naught. The Baltimore Ravens trailed the Browns at recess, but outscored the Browns 13-0 in the second half to come away with a tough victory, thanks to the 4th down play of tight end Mark Andrews, who took the snap, got off right guard, and went untouched 30 yards down the end zone.
Yeah, the fake tush push, I guess they called that play. He went through the middle, but then he went to his left and just that was all she wrote after that. But again, not the prettiest game for Baltimore, but again, it's a visual game. He was, LeBron was sacked 5 times. 4 of those times were by Myles Garrett and a losing effort there on his part. 103 yards for Derrick Henry and such. But yeah, I mean, look, don't look now, but the Ravens are back to 500 and they're 5-5, and with all the teams around them in that division, AFC North, struggling, they perhaps maybe sneak in there, perhaps maybe win it. And as far as the Browns are concerned, the whole thing with Shedeur Sanders saying that he didn't get any reps with the first team, that's usually the case. So for people who are freaking out like, oh my God, you have to have reps, but guys, that's how it usually goes. So for people who are freaking out like, oh my God, he wasn't prepared, but look, that's what happens in the NFL, folks. That's usually the case. So, but yeah, they had their shot to perhaps maybe tie it, but I know some people say, well, the Ravens the Ravens were not offsides, folks, and it was just not a good throw by Sanders, and but look, like I said, Baltimore back to 500. Maybe they can get it going in the AFC North.
Yeah, they have a golden opportunity to do so, especially what happened with Pittsburgh yesterday. Despite Pittsburgh winning yesterday, rather. Now, the game of the week for CPS took place in Denver, Colorado. Shout out to our colleague and friend of the show, Romy Bean. She saw her Broncos beat the Chiefs 22-19. Bo Nix for Denver, 24-37, 295 yards. After struggling in the last few weeks, he finally had a good game. PJ Harvey is now the new running back for Denver because my guy J.K. Domas is out for the year with a foot injury. On the flip side for KC, Kareem Hunt, 13 carries, 59 yards in the lone rushing touchdown. Travis Kelce for Kansas City, 9 catches, 91 yards in the score. LaKeena, it was an ugly game to watch in that first half. Scoring did pick up a bit in that second half, but that Broncos defense showed up and showed out. Kansas City, call me crazy, LaKeena, but they looked pedestrian. And where do they go from here at 5-5? The Broncos, in my opinion, are now your new AFC West Division champs.
Yeah, I mean, they like you said, they were trying to not just Dallas, but remember Patrick Surtain, I believe he's out for a little bit, and I think a couple other defensive guys. So the fact that that defense was able to actually make the stops when they needed to, I think that's another show remarkable. Bo Nix did his thing, 295 yards. RJ Harvey, who's the kind of like the pseudo running back right now with Dobbins being out. Well, I'm sure Sean Payton will figure that out eventually down the line. On the flip side, though, for the Chiefs, I mean, where's the run game at? I mean, 59 yards, not bad for Kareem Hunt, but they should have ran the ball more. Where was Rashee Rice at on the running side? I know he had 38 receiving yards, but where was the running part on his side? So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, the Kansas City's at 500. Look, I'm not going to say, it's over. It's curtains for them just yet, but it's not looking good. And look, and I said earlier about the Broncos. The Broncos have now being both the Chiefs and the Eagles. Remember, they beat them earlier this year. So they've actually beaten people. So I mean, look, they've had some big wins this year, and look, they can build on that. Perhaps now they're in the driver's seat. With the Chargers losing, now they're in the driver's seat in the AFC West.
And speaking of the driver's seat, let's go to Sunday Night Football, where the Eagles improved their record to 8-2 after defeating the Detroit Lions 16-9, keeping the Lions out of the end zone in that second half. Jared Goff for the Lions, 255 yards passing in one touchdown off of 14 of 37. Saquon Barkley on the flip side for the Eagles, 26 carries for 83 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs for Detroit led them in receiving yards with 107 of them off of 5 catches. LaKeena, I know Dan Campbell's a gambling man, but those gambles that he took last night did not work in his favor. The Philadelphia Eagles, they improved a little bit on offense from last week, but in my opinion, it's more about the Detroit Lions not getting it done on the road. They had to go back outside for the second consecutive week. They played the down Ron Trotton Commanders last week. They put up a 40-piece. This week against a better team, you only put up 9 points. You're not a good team. You're a very different team away from home.
Yeah, and that's really the thing. And I know that there was a bad call for decent home on one of the Lions defenders. Unfortunately, that kind of sealed the win for the Eagles. But even at the same time, though, I mean, Campbell made a couple of gambles. Unfortunately, they didn't pay off. Sometimes you just got to take the points, especially against the Eagles. Sometimes you just got to do that. Saquon had 83 rushing yards. Now, again, the Eagles, I guess we all thought that, some people thought that the Eagles were done earlier the year. Well, they're not so much. They're the first team, to face starter QB, with Goff, who completed at least 70% of his passes and held him to under 40% for the game. And also, they blitzed him a lot, too. They got him out of the pockets. So, the Eagles look really good. I guess, like I said, are they, it's not going to be easy from the repeat, but at least at 8-2, at least right now, they look really good.
Yep, and we'll see if they can get A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith going on the receiving side as the season goes along. All right, LaKeena, our studs and duds, we'll get to our 3 studs. Now, I'll start first. Bryce Young of Carolina, 448 yards passing, 3 touchdowns as the Panthers beat the Falcons 30-27 in overtime. My second stud will go to Kenneth Gainwell of Pittsburgh. 7 catches, 81 yards, and 2 receptions as the Steelers dominate the Bengals at home, 34-12. And my third stud will go to the backup running back, Byshell Tootin of the Jacksonville Jaguars. 15 carries, 74 yards, and a touchdown as the Jaguars blow out the Chargers right at home, 35-6.
Real quick, Denver with a nice win against Kansas City. Philadelphia, of course, with their win, they can show you why they're the reigning champs. And I'll say Buffalo. Like I said, that defense is I'm still a little bit worried about that defense, but Buffalo looked really good against them being a really good Tampa team.
All right, my 3 duds are as follows. The Atlanta Falcons blowing a big lead at halftime and letting Carolina not only get back in the game, but you give it away in overtime, losing the game and losing your starting quarterback for the rest of the season. Not good for the 3-7 Atlanta Falcons. My second dud, Jalen Ramsey spinning another person's face from Pittsburgh. Not good. If it was me, he'll be suspended for next week's game at Chicago, but we'll see what happens with that. And my third dud is the Los Angeles Chargers. You did not show up yesterday. Atlanta Jaguars push you around for 4 quarters.
Well, that was Jamar Chase. Remember that spat him first, as well as that to him punching him. So that's what happened in that game yesterday. So that he's my Chase because of what he did to Ramsey yesterday. Let's see here, real quick. I'll say Detroit. Look, sometimes you just gotta take your shots. You gotta take the points when you're facing the Eagles. I know you gotta get used to playing the Elvis because you might be going back there in a couple of months. So just keeping that in mind. And my other duds, I'll just say Atlanta. Like I said, for all the things you said earlier.
All right, we have another game that's on the docket for tonight. For the NFL Week 11. The Week 11 schedule concludes with the Dallas Cowboys going to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. You can watch that game on ABC and ESPN tonight at 7:15 p.m. The Dallas Cowboys are favored by 3.5. The Cowboys are 3-5-1 on the year, while the Raiders are 2-7 on the year. LaKeena, we all picked the Cowboys on our show last Friday. Do you see anything changing your mind here tonight?
No, I do. Like I said, Marshawn Nealon's death, I think, will definitely weigh heavily on the Cowboys. We'll see. Like I said, we'll see how they respond. The Raiders are pedestrian at best, so this could be one of those games that could get out of hand. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But like I said, we'll see how both teams, what both teams' mindsets are going to be tonight.
Yeah, and breaking news here from the NFL, the Green Bay Packers in particular, their victory came at a cost yesterday. Running back Josh Jacobs is considered week to week with a re-injury. According to Rob Domowski of ESPN.com, tests revealed no structural damage to Jacobs' knee.
Which is good. Like I said, they say it's week to week, so we'll see. He, like I said, he might. They'll play the Bears for like another 3 weeks, so I'm sure he'll make sure he's back for that game. So at least that injury, didn't, unlike some of the injuries we saw yesterday. At least that injury, okay, you'll take that. The best case scenario if you're the Packers.
Right. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 just around the corner. Right here on Second City Sports Zone Chicago on the Bears victory Monday. When we return, the Chicago Bulls losing streak continues, even though the return of Kobe White helped on the court, but still the same ugly ass result. Victor Wembanyama made some noise over the weekend in more ways than one. We'll get into that. We'll get into a free agency in baseball. The winter meetings are less than 3 weeks away, and we'll review last Saturday's week in college football in a special edition of Old School TV Monday. Then a whole lot more. You stick and stay right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a romance sport. What? It's a romance sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Every body in a work zone is someone's somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
He's my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Welcome back to Second City Sports. Hashtag Bears Victory Monday edition. You're live to load and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid right here. LaKeena McGee is over there. Excuse me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, again, IG.
As we kick off hour number 2, discussing the Bulls and the NBA and baseball winter meetings, previewing that and a whole lot more. If you have any questions or comments regarding those two subjects in this half hour, you definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get them up on the screen for you.
The Bulls have now lost 5 in a row. Do you remember the Bulls were 6-1, Sid? Good times. Unfortunately, now they've lost 5 in a row after losing 152 of the.
Yeah, everybody was excited. Yeah, everybody was excited.
Go ahead. I think there was a delay. Go ahead.
Yeah, everybody was excited. Talk about playoffs. Yeah, playoffs this, playoff that. But things have come back down to earth. And I know Kobe White came back, but yeah, it was a good time. Things are evening out now. Now we'll see what this team is being made of. I know we're going to go into what happened last night, but after what I saw, what happened last night, LaKeena, I'm more angry now than ever. Not just because they started 6-1, but it's some of the little things we talk about on the show all the time. Take care of the basketball, get other guys involved, which they have done for the most part this year. Having 5-6 guys in double figures all year. But last night, especially in that second overtime, we talked about before we started the show that in that second overtime, they just ran out of gas and Utah took advantage.
Yeah, 150-147 double overtime. The Jazz beat the Bulls. Kobe White in his first game back off the bench, he had 27 points. 26 points for Josh Giddey, 21 and 12 boards for another double-double for Vooch, and also a double-double for Giddey. Unfortunately, Buzelis, he had 18 points, but he fouled out, so that kind of killed the whatever momentum the Bulls had there. On the flip side for the Jazz, Lauri Markkanen had 47. Keontae George tied a career high, 33 points and such. Kevin Love, yes, he's still around. He had 10 points off the bench for the Jazz. So unfortunately for the Bulls, yeah, again, the interior defenses and not being able to defend the three. Even though they did shoot more threes, they did edge them out of the 3-point department. We're talking about the Bulls edge out the Jazz, but unfortunately, that kind of killed them in the end. They just, like I said, they just ran out of gas, and like I said, the double overtime, fatigue started setting for the Bulls, and unfortunately, they end up losing. Now they lost 5 in a row.
And let's not forget the Jazz's rookie ace point guard Ace Bailey only had 5 points in 10 minutes. You still let that happen. That's just not good. But as you mentioned, LaKeena, with the 3-point attempts, 38% overall for Chicago, 19-50 from 3-point range. They've been struggling shooting from the outside the last 3 games. Of course, the free throw percentage was very good, but you got to take care of the basketball. He had 38 assists, but 17 turnovers. That's still too many, especially in today's game. So you have to take care of that. The offensive rebounds was still good. You had an even advantage there. You actually out-rebounded the Jazz overall, but it's just the little things of running out of gas, and that just cannot happen, especially against a below 500 team in Utah. Yes, Utah is still rebuilding, and yes, shout out Lauri Markkanen. But for the Bulls, as we talk about, you got to get back to the basics as far as cutting down the turnovers and play some defense overall. Will you? I'm not going to get into points in the paint. I lied. I'm going to points in the paint. Giving up 52 points in the paint, especially today's game with the shooting, that's just inexcusable. Maybe you have better answers, LaKeena, but I don't understand it.
Yeah, it doesn't get easier for the Bulls either, as they continue their West Coast trip, and they got to play Denver tonight. So we'll see how. Oh, great! They got to play Murray and Jokic and the rest of that Nuggets squad, and we'll see how.
Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, we'll see how much they got left in the tank too, because they got to play again tonight. So yeah, it doesn't get easier for the Bulls out there as they continue their West Coast trip. Real quick through some of the rest of these games. Dallas, I mean, they needed overtime, but they beat Portland. Cooper Flag had a season high 21, so 138, 133. So I guess might be a good start. We'll see if Dallas can kind of build on that. Atlanta edged out Phoenix. Golden State, Moses Moody had 32 points, season high, as they pulled away from the bad Pelicans. That's just an awful Pelican squad. Houston, KD had 35, but they needed overtime to beat Orlando in a very entertaining game. Brooklyn, no trouble with Washington. De'Aaron Fox had 28 as the Spurs beat the Kings. And Boston, Jaylen Brown has 33. They beat the Clippers despite 37 points for James Harden.
Yeah, the Clippers are off to a struggling start, and we'll see if they can turn them around. Remember, they lost Bradley Beal for the season last week with that hip injury, so they're going to have to find other places to score. I know Kawhi Leonard's been hit or miss here and there to start the year, but the Clippers got to turn it around. With the Dallas, Anthony Davis, he was spotted sitting on the bench yesterday in the Jordan Love jersey. I know some folks had something to say about that. I don't care personally, but that's his business. But he's going to be reevaluated in the next week or two with his injuries that he's sitting out for right now. And speaking of New Orleans, Willie Green got his pink slip and league card over the weekend. So maybe this was a good relief for him. Of course, you don't want to get fired, but the way their franchise is running, Joe Dumars has a lot of work to do. But I think this will be a good thing for Willie Green. It's like, I can go to a franchise that actually values me. Will he be a head coach again? I doubt it. Who knows? But he can hop on somebody's staff, be an assistant, and see what a real NBA franchise looks like, because the stuff that he had to deal with down there the last few years has just not been good, i.e. Zion Williams, among other things.
Well, especially since I guess if you believe some of the reports that unfortunately CJ McCollum was his only ally there. Everyone else on the team kind of turned on him. So unfortunately that didn't help. So yeah. I mean, he seems like a good guy. I've heard, his interviews. He seems like a really, pleasant guy. I guess he just was in a bad situation, especially with Zion and all that. So maybe, in a couple years we'll see him back on the NBA bench. But yeah, that was just really terrible things going on down there in the Bayou.
Yep. Your winners from Saturday: Cleveland over Memphis. The Lakers continue their East Coast road trip. Rather, they blow out Milwaukee. Denver, as you mentioned, who the Bulls played tonight in the Mile High City. The Nuggets beat the T-Wolves on the road 113-112. And the Raptors are quietly continuing to win. Scotty Barnes being healthy for the first time in a while, in a couple years. They beat the struggling Pacers. And the Thunder continue to roll. They beat the Charlotte Hornets in Charlotte.
Yeah, real quick about the Raptors. Like I said, I'm not going to say they're going to compete in the East. They're not going to do that now. Could they perhaps maybe look make a go at it? Perhaps maybe in one of the play-ins. Maybe, like I said, I think Barnes staying healthy is going to be key for them.
Yep. And like I said, we'll see what happens as the season goes on. Now I want to talk about the NBA Cup games from Friday. These two in particular, they were on Amazon Prime. The Knicks, without Jalen Brunson, beat the Miami Heat at MSG 140-132. Landry Shamet led all scores for 36. Karl Anthony Towns had a 30-piece as well. He stepped up big. And, of course, in that second game of the Amazon Prime Friday doubleheader, it was the Golden State Warriors surviving by the skin of their teeth thanks to a big second half of Steph Curry as the Warriors beat the Spurs 109-108. De'Aaron Fox missed a potential game-winning shot, but during that game, LaKeena, Victor Wembanyama had a facial, you call the Eiffel Tower dunk over Draymond Green. Draymond Green tried to punk him, and Victor Wembanyama stood up to him and said, "You take that facial, young man." And of course, there was some words exchanged, but nothing further. Draymond Green was in foul trouble throughout the course of that game, but the San Antonio Spurs, as I said at the start of the year, they were Victor Wembanyama injury away from competing for a playoff spot last year, perhaps in the play-in. Of course, Victor Wembanyama was injured after the All-Star break last year. He was out for the rest of the year. This year, he's healthy. He's starting to become one of those top players in the league. Let's not forget the return of De'Aaron Fox from his earlier injuries from earlier this season. He's starting to make a difference for that team. You got Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sochan, and you have a 14-year veteran Harrison Barnes as well, help contributing for the San Antonio Spurs. Now, I mentioned Steph Curry. He had a big second half on Friday. He ended up with a 40 piece for that game. He made some big shots down the stretch in that game. Also to Brandon Podziemski, their starting point guard, he had a couple big shots. Jimmy Butler had some big plays down the stretch as well. As I mentioned, Golden State are currently 2 games above 500 at 8-6 on the year. The Spurs are 8-4, and Steph Curry had 49 points off of 16 to 26 shooting, 9 of 17 from downtown. He really started to heat up in that fourth quarter there. It was one of the best games that I watched earlier this year so far in the NBA. The Warriors, as we talked about last year when they got Jimmy Butler, they started to take off. And, of course, they beat Houston before the injuries to Jimmy Butler. To a lesser extent, Steph Curry had to get knocked down in the next round against Minnesota last year. But the Warriors, you like Steph doing these kinds of performances, but you got to have other guys step up, like Jimmy Butler, Moses Moody. He only had 4 points on Friday, but he's going to have to step up as well. Al Horford, even though he was left scoreless on Friday, he had a couple of key defensive plays down that stretch in that victory last Friday, too. Also, to Gary Payton II, he's the defensive group. Yes, he's the son of the Hall of Famer Gary Payton. He had 2 big threes in that fourth quarter on Friday as well. So the Golden State Warriors, even though they didn't have everybody else at their best, the couple of their role players helped make a big difference down the stretch, coming out of San Antonio with a 1-point win.
Yeah, and I saw that Draymond did not look amused when Wemby dunked on him.
Gotcha.
He was not happy. They made it seem like, okay, he's going to just shoot the shot, but then he's like, nah, I'm going to dunk it. So, and then Draymond did not look very happy. But also, too, Steph had 49, and he now ties MJ with the most 40-plus point games after the age of 30. So it's just, like I said, it's just him and Steph and MJ's. But, yeah, a nice win for the Warriors. They're 8-6. I think they're 1-1 in the NBA Cup. So, but yeah, nice win for the Warriors. They're edging out the Spurs. That was actually been a really good game, even after that even after that before that dunk, by Wemby over Draymond. That was hilarious.
Yeah, and great job and great call by Kevin Harlan on that second game on Amazon Prime on last Friday during that Spurs Warriors telecast. Your winners from last Friday in the week 3 of the NBA Cup. Besides Golden State and the New York Knicks, the Clippers get by Dallas in double overtime. The Lakers take care of the Pelicans. The Timberwolves get by the Sacramento Kings. The Bucks beat the Hornets. The Rockets beat the Trailblazers. The Pistons beat the 76ers. 76ers still without Joel Embiid. What's new there? And the Brooklyn Nets lose to the Orlando Magic by 7. So those are results from the NBA Cup Week 3 from this past Friday.
Going to this week's games, Monday tonight on Peacock. Should be a good one here. You got Milwaukee and Cleveland. You got Indiana and Detroit. Detroit's been playing very well lately. The Clippers continue their East Coast trip against Philadelphia. The Knicks and the Heat. That should be another good one. Charlotte versus Toronto. Dallas and Minnesota. I know Minnesota, they were 1-1 over the weekend there. And also OKC beats New Orleans, and the mess going on down there. And we'll see if the Bulls can try to bounce back as they face Jokic, Murray, and the rest of the Denver Nuggets.
All right, your schedule for Tuesday tomorrow looks like this. Golden State will continue their road trip. They'll visit the Orlando Magic. The Boston Celtics will face Brooklyn. The Pistons will play the Atlanta Hawks down in Atlanta. Most of the country will get this game because of the NBC Coast to Coast Tuesday night doubleheader on Peacock. The Memphis Grizzlies, without John Morant, will face the San Antonio Spurs. Let's see what Victor Wembanyama can do on the national stage on NBC. Your other games are as follows. Utah will face the Lakers. Perhaps a return for LeBron James. He returned to practice today. We'll see what happens if he makes his debut tomorrow. And for those of you on the West Coast, we'll get the Suns at the Trailblazers at 10 p.m. Chicago time on NBC and Peacock. And that's your schedule for Tuesday.
Yeah, I want to know who they're gonna get to do the opening because they had Marv Albert do it last week for NBC. So
That
let's
was
see
nice. Yeah, that was
yeah,
nice.
that was
Yes.
very nice little nostalgia. So we'll see if they make any more surprises there. Now on Wednesday, you got Houston and Cleveland. That's gonna be the first game of the ESPN Wednesday doubleheader. Charlotte and Indy, Toronto and Philadelphia, Golden State as they start their continue their East Coast trip against Miami, Washington, Minnesota, Denver and New Orleans, Sacramento at OKC. Your second game of the ESPN doubleheader, you got the Knicks and the Mavs, and of course the Bulls continue their West Coast trip as they face Portland. That should be a fun one.
Note for the ESPN doubleheader for Wednesday, no Inside the NBA. You're only going to get the Inside the NBA guys for the pregame show. That's at Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Your schedule for Thursday looks like this as the Clippers continue their East Coast road trip. They'll face Orlando. Sacramento will travel to Memphis. The 76ers and Bucks will get down in Wisconsin. And the Atlanta Hawks will face the San Antonio Spurs. That can be seen on NBA TV. And that's your schedule for Thursday and for this week in the association.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports with Chicago. LaKeena McGee Sidney Brown with you as we wrap things up for this segment. We're going to go to the Diamond for these next couple of minutes. And some free agency here. Josh Naylor has signed an extension to stay in Seattle with the Mariners. They're back together for a second stint out there in Seattle. A 5-year deal for him, as well as the Yankees and Lefty Yarbrough. They reached a 1-year deal as well. So, and also a couple injury notes. Enrique Hernandez had elbow surgery for the Dodgers. He actually pitched with that bad elbow, but he will miss the World Baseball Classic coming up next month. But but also some interesting free agent sightings, Sid, because I know you and I are on the same page as far as what both the Cubs and White Sox need to do to kind of address their needs.
Yeah, I'll start out with the Cubs first. The Cubs need starting pitching. We saw what happened last year toward the end of the season, especially in the playoffs in that series against Milwaukee. Shota, technically a free agent. We know he's not that prime time pitcher yet. Justice Steele, he's going to return next year, but he may not make his debut until May. From what I've heard, we'll see about that. Thank goodness it was a Tommy John surgery in his case. I'm talking about Justin Steele, and that's why. And of course, Matthew Boyd is back for another year. But after him, we'll just stick to the Cubs for this. We'll get to the White Sox on the other side of this break. But sticking with the Cubs, perhaps Dylan Cease, maybe Ranger Suarez I saw on that list could be an option for Chicago. You don't have to pay a lot for both those guys, perhaps more for Suarez in my opinion, but either of those two guys interest you? Because what we saw this year, mostly last year with the Dodgers with all the injuries, you need a stockholder starting pitcher because injuries are occurring more and more than ever. So if you're Chicago's North Side Ball Club, starting pitcher should be the first thing. I know people say, well, you could get a bat. They need a bat. Yeah, they'll get a bat. I'm not worried about that. But pitching is more of a priority. You need another 1 or 2 starting pitchers, and perhaps you need a bullpen help because Brad Keller and I believe Drew Pomeranz are both free agents. I don't think either one of them are coming back.
No, I don't think so. And I think if you really need an extra starter and perhaps maybe a setup guy as well. So that's really the Cubs. I heard what Bruce Levine said on Marquee, the clips from Marquee, and they said they are going to be very competitive. I'm talking about the Cubs are for the during free agency, get a couple, maybe even 1 or 2 pitching arms. You can never have too many. So yeah, I think they'll get a bat. I think they'll address that perhaps during the free agency. But yeah, I think really right now I think they need to address pitching before the winter meetings.
Like I said, I brought up Ranger Suarez and I brought up Dylan Cease. How about Framber Valdez from Houston? I know he's been injured off and on here a little bit, but when he's healthy, he's still one of the best young left-handers in the league from the Houston Astros. Would you be interested in his services as a Cub fan?
He would come in the cheap, I think, just because of the fact that he has had a lot of injury issues. So it could be one of those 1 year, prove it, incentive laden deals. So I could probably see the Cubs doing that. Maybe we'll see, but yeah, I think he might be a good kind of back end guy, rotation guy.
Zach Gallen from the Arizona Diamondbacks.
He might command a lot of money, so I'm wondering could he perhaps maybe one of those bargain guys, but maybe.
I heard Matt Spiegel from the score on Fox 32 last night brought up this name. You saw him in the playoffs with San Diego, Michael King.
One commander,
He's
like I said,
at age 30.
Yeah, like I said, the fact that he's 30, yeah, he might not. You get like I said, you probably get another guy. You probably get on a lot of incentive laden deal. That's another guy you probably can get that for that kind of money.
Okay, a couple more names to throw at you. Shane Bieber, now age 30, with the American League champion Toronto Blue Jays.
Would he be willing to leave Toronto, though? I think that's really the thing. Is Toronto going to make him play for him, though, since he was actually really good for them in their World Series run?
And Merrill Kelly of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So of course, he was traded to Texas at the trade deadline.
Texas, yeah.
He's at age 37, though. So
37,
I don't know.
I don't know about that. Yeah. It might be too old. But like I said, maybe a setup guy, maybe. I don't know. Like I said, the 37, that's a little bit of a red flag for me.
Chris Bassett of Toronto, but he's at age 36.
Like I said, it would have to be anybody over 35. You would have to get another like a year prove it deal. I think.
Okay, and Zach Littell of Tampa Bay, and he was traded to Cincinnati. At the trade deadline. He is at age 30 right now.
Yeah, like I said, another one of those guys that maybe could be a backhand guy, maybe. But yeah, there are a lot of names there.
Okay, so like I said, the winter meetings will take place less than 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, the December, I believe, 2nd through the 9th, and so we'll keep our eyes and ears on the and boots on the ground right here for you on Second City Sports. Real quick for the White Sox, we'll sneak this in. I know we had to take a timeout, but for the White Sox, I hear a lot of rumors about Luis Robert Jr. being traded. As I said, I don't want to hear any of it unless an actual deal is made. Yeah, so
why pick up his contract if you're going to trade him?
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, unless Chris actually gets the deal that he wants, I don't see Luis Robert Jr. being traded between now and the trade deadline. I know we're going to hear some rumors and whatnot, but unless Chris has the deal that he wants, he's not going to trade him. Ryan O'Hearn from the Baltimore Orioles, he may interest the Sox now since Josh Naylor is off the board. You know me, I want Pete Alonso, but that's not going to happen. I know he's represented by Scott Boras. I know Ryan Sauer doesn't like Scott Boras. He should put that BS aside and do what's best for the team, but what do I know? But Ryan O'Hearn could be a possibility, a big bet in a first base DH style role for Chicago. I think this could work. What say you?
Yeah, I think it could. I think he could be one of those, maybe not builder guys, but I think he could be one of those guys that could definitely, I mean, look, he could be like one of those guys that could probably, maybe that's what, the White Sox need, I think. What about you? Do you, Val?
Like I said, I think it could work because he could play multiple positions. I said first base at
first
DH.
base.
I said, the White Sox do not have a first baseman right now. Don't tell me Lenyn Sosa. Don't tell me Miguel Vargas. No.
I was going to say Vargas.
No.
I was going to say Vargas.
No. He's
all
probably
right.
Yeah, like I said, he's probably your third baseman at worst when the season opens next year. So, like
Maybe
I said, Ryan
shortstop, perhaps. He's played shortstop too.
Well, Costa Montgomery should start in shortstop.
Right,
so
right.
That's solidified right there. But like I said, O'Hearn could work for Chicago. I would look at Marcell Ozuna, the DH from Atlanta. He could be an option, but he's at age 35. I said maybe that would work for a year or two for him. So, like I said, GM Chris Getz going to have to be creative in these deals because it looks like he's not going to get much of a payroll bump from Ryan Storff. We'll see what happens with that. I think a veteran pitcher that could work out for them in a return. I've been here, little whispers here and there. Jose Quintana. Last year, Milwaukee Brewers at age 36, but he pitched well for Milwaukee this year, and we all know that Milwaukee's not a big budget team, and you could get him on a cheap 1-year deal, perhaps maybe a 1-1 deal, 1-year deal with an option of a second year. I know he was here a decade ago with Chris Sale, who was much younger, but he's still effective at age 35. He could definitely give you some innings, and that cannot. I don't think it's going to be a bad option for the Southside Hitmen.
Like I said, but yeah, I think if you're Quintana, you want to go someplace where you're going to win. So yeah, you're 36. Yeah, that might be If this was like 5 years ago, I could probably see that, but I don't know. Like I said, he's probably going to want to go to some place where he could probably pitch for a winning team, and the White Sox aren't there yet.
A couple other names for the White Sox are Brandon Woodruff. I know he's been injured off and on for the last couple years, and this is a perfect candidate for the White Sox. I say no about injuries, but he may be an outside shot, but I think the White Sox should take a good look at him. I know some people say Adrian Hauser. Okay, but I don't know if you're going to get that same surprise start again this next year as you did this year before you traded him to Tampa Bay. That's my only question. If you expect the same thing from him next year, no. That's just my thoughts.
And he may actually get some play for some contending teams too, since he did so well for the White Sox. So
now here's another candidate for DH first baseman, but I don't know if he's going to come to the South Side unless all his options are dried up literally. Paul Goldschmidt, he's at age 38. Last team he played for was for the Yankees this year.
Like I said, only if all his other options fall through. That's the only reason I can see him going to the White Sox.
I agree. So the White Sox have some work to do. Your Cubs have work to do. Oh, speaking of the Cubs, LaKeena, with Jose Quintana, if they can't get the likes of Dylan Cease, I know Justin Verlander's out there. The Cubs had the chance to get him back in 2017. It didn't happen. I don't see it happening now, because Justin Verlander is about 42, 43. I don't see that happening. But what about Jose Quintana? He could be a good option for the Cubs.
Could get somebody they can get on the cheap. I think that's probably, they may not have to spend
it's the
that
Cubs style.
Yeah. So he might be this late deal. Perhaps might be a guy who can get innings. He's showing you that he's actually still pretty decent even at 36. So again, he could probably be something that the Cubs could look at perhaps.
Yeah, and definitely at that back end of rotation. But like we said, the winter meetings are less than 3 weeks away, and we'll have our boots and ears on the ground. We'll give you the latest of what happens in the world of baseball right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago.
Take a really quick break, of course. We'll talk about college football week 12, as there were some surprises over the weekend, some college hoops, some great performances there, and some not so great performances. Also, a little old school TV Monday special edition of that, and Blackhawks. The Blackhawks got a nice win against Toronto over the weekend. LaKeena McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. Our Sports Reset coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Chi. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey Maggette, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports and the hashtag Bears Victory Monday edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CKid80. Once again, it's CKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
This is our sports potpourri segment. So any of the topics of the subjects that we discussed thus far on today's show, including yesterday's 19-17 victory with the Bears over the Vikings to improve their record to 7-3, and plus a whole lot more for this segment. This is our last segment of the show for today, so I have any last minute questions or comments for us on our sports potpourri segment. You definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get them up on the screen for you.
We're at week 12 in college football. There were a couple interesting things of note over the weekend going into this last weekend's games, I should say. Oregon took care of Minnesota 42-13. We'll tell you why that's significant in a bit here. Clemson edged out Louisville 20-19 on Saturday. Ohio State, no trouble with UCLA. Indiana, again, no trouble with Wisconsin. Texas A&M came back from 3 down going into the first at the end of the first half. They came back and beat South Carolina 31-30, scoring 28 unanswered. And personally, yeah, that was just a bad loss on the part of South Carolina. But I think they showed you that, look, Texas A&M, I don't know if they were playing down to their competition, but yeah, they looked really bad early if you saw that game early on.
And a big bad boy smack to that police officer that was getting into it with those South Carolina players. That was not smart. And just because you have a gun and a badge does not mean you get to do whatever the hell you want. Like I said, shout out to the cops. We love you all, but those few bad apples that ruined it for everybody else, especially that guy, that was not smart. But back to the actual game. I got a chance to catch some of the ending of that, and I don't know if you saw this play, LaKeena, where the Texas A&M was trying to basically put the game away to go up by 8 points. Not a quarterback sneak, but I think it was like a fake reverse, and then they turned the ball over. But of course, they held on to win at the end. But you mentioned with the Aggies, I think it was a little bit both playing down to that competition and thinking that you just go roll over to victory. When you have that type of attitude, things like that typically can happen. And like you said, South Carolina, I think you asked the question on Friday, would this be possible? I said, kind of, but we didn't think it was going to end up like this. But for Texas A&M, hopefully this will be there scared for them to get their attention and get back to being focused and playing 4 quarters, because if you get caught napping, stuff like this can happen. But for the Aggies, they're going to a new level right now. And with their spot perhaps in sight of playing the SEC championship game in a couple of weeks, is more than enough reach now.
Yeah, I know because they got to play Texas that Friday after they got to play Texas the Friday after Thanksgiving, so they might have been caught looking ahead a little bit. What does that one? But again, this is what happens when you're not used to being at the top. So again, they got to test there now. Speaking of saying the SEC, Oklahoma with a couple of big defensive stops as they beat Alabama 23-21. John Mateer threw for a couple of TDs, but didn't throw for a TD, but it was really more the defense for Oklahoma that definitely stepped up, and they got that big win down in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, Alabama's offense was on fire in that first half, particularly that second quarter. But as you mentioned, the Sooners' defense came through in the end. The reason why I'm glad because remember I told you on our last show last Friday here that I thought Oklahoma had a big chance to pull out the upset. Well, they did, despite Ty Simpson's 326 passing yards and a touchdown, and despite the 2 touchdown night from Daniel Hill, the Oklahoma's defense shut down Alabama, especially in that fourth quarter, and Alabama couldn't find the mojo like they had in that first half to put up points on the board. As the old saying goes, offense sells tickets, defense wins championships. Oklahoma had to having a little bit of a rough go there in the middle of the year. They're finally starting to get their stride. And will they be in the SEC championship game? Maybe. They still have an outside shot, but this victory by them is going to go a long way for them for the rest of the season.
Yeah, they play Missouri and LSU to finish up the season, so we'll see if Brett Venables can put a stamp on that defense, and they're actually been playing well now. Georgia, so Georgia, no trouble with Texas, 35-10 in the Big 12. Texas Tech, they're closer to clinching a spot in the Big 12 title game. No trouble with UCF. Ole Miss, with all the rumors about what's going to happen with Coach Kiffin going on, they were able to distract that. Beating Florida, that's the rumor of where he might be going, 34-24. There, Notre Dame, no trouble with Pittsburgh. BYU, no trouble with TCU. Utah pulled away from Baylor. Miami, last happened for them. They want to get back into the playoff discussion. They beat NC State, no trouble there. Georgia Tech almost lost again. They beat BC. They edged out BC there. Haynes King with 371 passing yards. USC, look, they came back and they beat Iowa. Look, Iowa had control of that game early because it was raining out there in the Rose Bowl, but they came back and scored 16 unanswered, and they ended up winning it and setting up a big game between Oregon and USC for the Big Ten title game. Yes, I know that's weird for me to say, but it's 2025. Give me a break.
Shout out to Mekhi Lemon, the star wide receiver for the Trojans. 10 catches, 153 yards in the score. Their star quarterback, Jay Maliva, 23 of 32, 254 yards in the touchdown. You mentioned, LaKeena, that Trojans offense stayed hot in the second half, outscoring Iowa 16-0 in a huge comeback victory. I question USC here and there throughout the year, especially after blowing that big game against the Final Lineup early in the year. I know they had some trouble with Michigan and a couple other opponents, but they're starting to find their stride now. And like you said, they're on the doorstep of competing in the Big Ten title game. We said a couple of weeks ago they talking about USC need to get on the roll if they want to have a shot and participate in the college football playoff. They're on the doorstep now. I know I keep repeating myself using that phrase, but they're on the doorstep now, so hopefully they can have a strong finish to the regular season.
And the defense is making plays. Yay! So, give them give Lincoln Riley credit for that. But, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We'll talk about that game with Oregon coming up on Friday. Michigan, not their best showing, but, again, this is not about style points. They overcame 4 turnovers, including 2 interceptions from Bryce Underwood, as they came back to beat Northwestern 24-22. They're 6-1 in the Big Ten. They may still have a shot against that Big Ten title game. Now, they do place Ohio State at the end of the season. They got Maryland coming up. They should have no trouble with Maryland. Ohio State, that's really going to be the game. They host Ohio State. So this is an odd year this year. So they host Ohio State there, but they still got an outside shot for us getting into the Big Ten title game.
Shout out to Fox Sports for their coverage during their pregame show and during the game. I know that their pregame show across the street from Murphy's Bleachers and from Wrigley Field in that big parking lot, if you're familiar with that area. I know the Barstool Sports folks made a mess of themselves. We'll get into that another time. But outside of that, it was I watched some of that pregame show. It was nice. Great call by Gus Johnson, Jenny Tapton, and
Joe Klatt. Joe Klatt.
Joe Klatt, thank you. Thank you. My brain seems to escape sometimes. But on to the actual game. Dominic Zavada redeemed himself. He missed 2 kicks. He's your college version of Cairo Santos. But a key spot on that drive, LaKeena, for Michigan, they had a 3rd and I believe 8. And they got, I think it was 3rd and 5, and they had 8 yards on that run on 3rd down. And I said Northwestern had their chance because they were physical. As we said on our last episode last Friday, Northwestern had a chance to keep this interesting because Michigan's offense doesn't wow you like they did in years past under Jim Harbaugh, even though he believed in running the ball and playing defense. But Northwestern, they were hitting. There was physical out there, forcing 4 turnovers, as you mentioned, but they were gassed in that last drive, and Michigan got the manageable field goal for the win. But for Northwestern, I said early in that fourth quarter, when they had forced that last turnover, if they just get down and score, game is over. And with young teams like Northwestern, or the young team trying to form an identity, those type of games you got to close out. And unfortunately, they couldn't find a way to get it done.
Yeah, give Bryce Underwood credit. He's only 9. He's not even 19 years old yet, but he was able to. You can tell he's a little bit. The nerves kind of got to him early on playing that Wrigley, but he was able to overcome that. Jordan Marshall was definitely the MVP for Michigan. He definitely made some big runs to get Michigan back in it, and kept it and helped set up that game-winning field goal for Michigan. So, again, not the prettiest
also
game.
too, real quick. Yeah. Real quick, LaKeena, not to interrupt. Andrew Marsh also had a one-handed catch on the last drive of that game. I know he had 12 catches overall for 189 yards, but he made a big one-handed catch on that last drive as well. I just want to give him some love as well.
Yeah, that was that got him a big first down that kept the drive going, and they were able to set up that magical field goal. Virginia pulled away from Duke. Tennessee, no trouble with New Mexico State. Navy upset USF. You're kind of putting a dent on their chance of being that outside team to get into the playoff. Arizona upset Cincy. So that put a damper on their chance of perhaps getting the Big 12. They gotta win out. I'm talking about Cincy to win the Big 12 title there. And shout out to our buddy Leila Rahimi, friend of the show from The Score. Her North Texas Mean Green, they beat UAB, and now they're ranked for the first time in their school history in Division I. So shout out to her alma mater for that. Nice. They've had a really great season down there just outside Dallas. Arizona State edged out West Virginia. LSU, they edged out Arkansas. Let's see, any other games of note here? North Carolina. Well, they lost Wake Forest 28 to 12, unfortunately. So not a good showing for Bill Belichick and his guys. Also, UNLV edged out Utah State in double overtime. That was a weird game. Nobody wanted to win that game apparently, but it sets up a nice game. Coming up for the Mountain West Conference. We'll talk about that in a second. But a very entertaining Week 12 in college football.
And getting back locally, let's give the Fighting Illini some love. As they improved their record to 7-3. Handed Maryland the Terrapins 6th straight loss with a 24-6 victory. Luke Allmeyer threw for 172 yards and 2 touchdown passes. And I said they needed to start running the football. Caden Fagan stepped up to the challenge. 14 carries, 81 yards in the score for the Illini. And one of those 2 touchdown recipients was Hudson Clement, the star wide receiver for the Fighting Illini. 3 catches for 72 yards and 2 scores. So the Fighting Illini they get back on track, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago after they lost to Washington. Their college football playoff chances are out the window. Perhaps the Big Ten title game as well. I know they got 2 more games to go. They still should finish up with a great record at 9-3. They still probably get a December 29th, maybe a New Year's Day bowl game or New Year's Eve bowl game. But we thought they could take that next step. They're just not ready yet, in my opinion. But Brett Bielema is going to have his team finish strong down the stretch.
Yeah, nice showing. Well, make it. It gets a little bit tougher for Illinois. They got to play Northwestern to finish up the season. But look, they should be able to get to 9 wins. Hopefully get to a decent bowl game. But they got a tough one against Wisconsin coming up on Saturday. So that's really going to be a thing here. Now, speaking of Washington, a nice bounce back win for Washington over Purdue. So we'll see if they're now at 7 wins as well. So I think, like I said, it's starting to get a little bit closer to the end of the season, regular season, I should say, in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to see some of these teams, especially, like I said, a lot of these records in the playoff will change in the next couple of weeks. So we may see some surprises coming up. So it should be fun.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Do you see? I think the rankings will be out tomorrow as far as the latest field for the college football playoff. Do you see a couple of 2 or 3 teams moving out and a couple other teams moving in? I believe we're going to see at least 2 teams. That's just my opinion, but you closer to it than I am. But I think we're going to see at least two teams move up a spot, perhaps move out, and another team move in. What say you?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, these rivalry games are going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks. There's definitely going to be a lot of movement coming up, especially with the games that's coming up. Like I said, USC, Oregon, that's going to be big, for playoff positioning and even Big Ten positioning and such. Like I said, it's really all going to come down to the setup for these last couple of weeks of the regular season.
All right. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid LaKeena here with you. Let's do that hockey real quick. The Blackhawks, they defeated the Toronto Maple Leafs 3-2 at the UC last Saturday, and it was the first of 4 centennial celebrations as the Blackhawks celebrate 100 years in the National Hockey League. The 3-2-1. Dennis Savard showed up. Corey Crawford showed up. Patrick Sharp showed up, and of course they honored.
Sharp was there. Yep.
Yeah, I think it was Tony Esposito bobblehead night. He was honored before the game. Bobby Hull was honored before the game, and also the late great Stan Mikita was honored before the game as well. Those 3 guys I just mentioned all passed within the last few years. They were honored before face-off. LaKeena Spencer Knight, as I said before, and I'll say it again, I believe he's second in the NHL in goals against average. It was a classic back and forth game between the 2 original 6 rivals. We know Toronto has struggled to start the year. Jeff Blashill, he's a candidate for head coach of the year if the season would end today, even though we're a little bit over a month and a half into the season now. But those young guys of the Blackhawks, as we said on our last show, we'll say it here, they will not quit. They'll give it everything they got from the first whistle to the last whistle. And when they took the lead in that third period, I said, hold on. Let's see if they could hold on. They did for a 3-2 victory.
Yeah, it was a really solid showing. I saw the highlights of it. Really great game all around. But also, too, like Nick Foligno, he took a puck off his hand. He's good at,
yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, he's going to be out for about a month. So that's a big injury for the Hawks. He's been really great for them so far this year, one of their captains. But like I said, the Blackhawks have actually shown, they've actually been pretty entertaining this year. So I think, like I said, I'm not going to say they're going to be competing in the Central Division. I'm not saying that, but they could definitely perhaps maybe make things interesting. Perhaps maybe compete for one of those wild card spots if they're able to hang on. So.
Yeah, the Hawks are 9-5-4 on the year, as we talked about on our on our last show. The Hawks had a devastating loss in overtime last Wednesday night at the UC against the New Jersey Devils, losing in overtime. I said on our last show that the Hawks need to bounce back and play their game and be more consistent. Well, they did that on last Saturday over the weekend against the Toronto Maple Leafs, defeating Toronto 3-2 in regulation. Tavo Teravainen was your second star. He scored the second goal of the game for Chicago. And Colton Dock was your first star. He had a goal as well for the Chicago Blackhawks, which turned out to be the game winner early in that third period. The next Hawks game we'll get it up for you real quick. It will be on Tuesday against the Calgary Flames. That will be at 7:30 at the United Center. You can watch that game locally on CHSN, or if you have the NHL Center Ice package, you can watch that on ESPN+. The Hawks will face another inferior opponent in Calgary. Calgary has been struggling this year. They are 5-12-3 on the year. So we'll see if the Blackhawks can keep it going and get their 10th victory of the season.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks. So yeah, sorry about talking about Nick Foligno and also all that. So yeah, they play like I think you said they play Calgary tomorrow, so that should be a fun one. You can watch that game on ESPN Plus, their ESPN Unlimited app. But yeah, Foligno going to be going for about a month. That's going to be a big. That's really going to be a big loss for the Hawks. That Blackhawks team. He's one of their captains. But yeah, I think it's setting up for the Hawks where they could perhaps maybe they're 9-5-4 right now. They're like a third or fourth place in the Central, and they could perhaps maybe, like I said, I'm not going to say they're going to compete for the division, but I think they will definitely be in every game. So you look at the Devils, Jack Hughes is going to be gone for about 6 weeks over a freak accident. That was just brutal. That was just brutal how all that kind of transpired. But that's going to be interesting to see how the Devils respond without him going to be gone for a couple of months. Boston's looked really good. Carolina, you know how much I like that Carolina Hurricane squad. Brenda Moore and the crew there. Colorado's look good. The Kings actually look really good so far this year. Kemp, they just signed a new deal with them, so he's gonna be in the fold for the next 7 or 8 years, 85 million. But yeah, it's been really solid so far. And I gotta say, we'll talk more hockey, down the line here. But I'm really liking what I see so far with some of the teams you mentioned, including the Blackhawks.
All right, your quick roundup in college hoops before we close it out with a special edition of Old School TV Monday.
All right. Well, Northwestern with a pretty entertaining, game with a nice showing there. Boyd Sprodius actually had the call of this game for TNT with Greg Anthony. He was here in Chicago over on Friday. Nick Martinelli had the go ahead, jumper and hit a couple of free throws to solidify that win over DePaul. And unfortunately, on the flip side, though, for Loyola, they're now 1-4. Not looking good for Coach Daniel Valentine. And that Ramblers team so far.
All right. Any other nuggets? I saw any other college basketball nuggets that we should know about. I did turn to ESPN. I think it was ESPN yesterday. My guy squad Penny Hardaway played on. They were losing big to UNLV. They were down by 17. I was like, oh, forget it.
Yeah, it's definitely a real year for Penny Hardaway and his guys this year. Although Houston, with a nice win edging out Auburn. Purdue looks really good so far. Florida defending champs after that tough loss a couple weeks ago. They're now back at it. I know they beat Miami last night as well. On Saturday, I know UConn held on against BYU. That was a good, really entertaining game there. We might be seeing them. We might see that matchup down the line in March. Louisville's look good so far. So is St. John's. After losing their, they had a tough loss earlier as well. And so I think everyone's just jockeying for position. I'm going to give you a homework assignment. So at least watch one college hoops game this week. That's all. That's all I will ask of you this week, to watch one of these college hoops games coming up.
Well, one I will watch, and I was going to give our listeners a reminder. This Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on FS1, Alabama will travel to Chicago to take on the Final Line. Now, I know they have Peja Stojakovic on top of the Final Line, so I'm interested to see how they play. They're going to play at the United Center, so those of you that have tickets to that game, leave early, obviously, because, Chicago traffic, so you know what. But that game will be seen on FS1 at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, so I definitely cannot wait for that. This is going to be a first of many big tests for this young Illini squad this year. And I think they have 5 or 6 players returning from last year's squad, so they have some youth and experience. So Brad Underwood has a good squad. We'll see how they do against Alabama. So I cannot wait for that game on Wednesday live from the United. So that's at 8 p.m. Wednesday on FS1. That one I'll definitely be watching. And we'll definitely be discussing that on Friday.
Yeah, that definitely should be a good one. Out of my own squad, MSG, that's the Coaches vs. Cancer Classic. Michigan State and Kentucky. That's gonna be at 5:30 on ESPN tomorrow. And the second game of that doubleheader, you get to see the Boozer twins, Cam Bruiser, and lead the way for Duke as a base Candace, also in the second game of that MSG doubleheader there. So that should be a fun one. And in addition to that game, Sid, on Wednesday, Arizona and UConn, that should be a fun one out there in Stores. That's going to be at 6 o'clock just before that game on FS1. So a little bit of an appetizer for that game before the Alabama-Illinois game at the UC. You get to watch the top 5 teams in Arizona and UConn. That should be a fun one on FS1. So a couple of great college hoops action coming up this week.
All right. You're listening to Second City Sports Zone Chicago City. LaKeena here with you now. Around this time every Monday, we like to close out the show with a feel-good throwback segment. We call it Old School TV Monday. But for this week, as the Bears celebrate the 1985 World Championship from the Monsters of the Midway, we too at Second City Sports, not every week but at various points throughout the season, will celebrate the Bears 1985 Super Bowl championship with you. For this week, we did the Minneapolis Miracle to start the year back in September. This week we'll take you back to October 26th, 7th, 1985. In the rematch game at Soldier Field, it was the Minnesota Vikings against the Chicago Bears. The Bears came out on top 27-9. Dennis McKinnon's scored a TD run in the second quarter for Minnesota. The Bears kept up the scoring in the third quarter with Otis Wilson's 23-yard interception return for a touchdown, intercepted Tommy Kramer, and Walter Payton scored the other touchdown reception from Jim McMahon as the Bears beat the Vikings, and of course they wrapped up with the safety as the Bears beat the Vikings 27-9 to improve their record in 1985 to 8-0.
Yeah, and I think only clips. I don't think the whole game is on YouTube. It was a CBS game. I think there are only clips of it on YouTube. I don't think there's I don't think the whole game is on there. I think it's hard to find copies of the whole game. At least it's not, the videos are not like all messed up. But yeah, it was complete dominance by that by that Bears squad. They had 5 interceptions, as Sid said, 4 sacks, of course. Wilson's pick 6. I mean, that kind of sort of like broke the game open right there, because Minnesota was right there for a little bit, but again, that defense for the Bears was way too much for them, and they were able to just too much for Tommy Kramer and that Vikings offense was actually pretty decent back then. That was just one of those games that was just like, it was basically all Bears.
Yeah, the Bears defense also had 4 sacks, including 2 of them by Otis Wilson, as I mentioned earlier. He had a pick 6 as well. So, and Walter Payton ran for over 100 yards, 118 to be exact, over 23 carries. So, the Bears at that time improved to 2-0, beating the Minnesota Vikings, sweeping them in the season series in the NFC Central Division. So, that's our old school TV salute this week as we celebrate the '85 Bears championship, as the Bears dominate the Vikings with a 27-9 win in Soldier Field on October 27th, 1985.
You can find LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, executes again at IG.
You can find your Shirley Sidney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80, SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, so Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports Live in Living Color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports Live in Living Color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And if you miss an interview, if you miss a segment, don't worry. You can catch the replays anytime, anywhere on the Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Whether we talk college football, we do our picks for our Goku Team Man from KXRB, or an interview. If you miss it, don't worry. You can catch the replay anytime, anywhere on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
All right, folks. Enjoy all the college shoes, both men and women. You've got NBA, of course, hockey, and so much more. Like I said, we'll talk about all the great college football games as we get down to the wire here in the regular season coming up on Friday. Also, of course, we'll preview Bears and Steelers and so much more. And also MLB stuff. If there are any record news, we'll have that for you guys as well. Also, we'll talk about the Hall of Fame. Some first timers. We'll see if any of those guys got a shot, perhaps making in first ballot. I think there's only one, but if that many. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that on Friday. But even still, first, I'm LaKeena. Enjoy your week. Be safe out there. This has been Second City Sports on Sports Chicago, and we'll see you guys on Friday.
Da Bears, holla!